If you'd like online business explained to you in a way that you can actually understand, go to latenightim.com/explain. It's completely free, and I made it just for you. Now, how about an episode?
Episode 105.
Late Night Internet Marketing.
This week on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast, we talk about how to recover when you've gotten completely off track. I'm an expert in this, as you know, because I am often off track, so I can really help you with this one. I also give you a niche site update. We're really rolling with this one, and I'm going to give you a real example today. All this and more on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
The Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
You've been working for somebody else, but you want a business to run yourself. You want to know how to start and where to begin. Can you get out your comfort zone, my friend? Yes, you can do it right when it's late at night. At the end of the day, your dreams burning inside. So keep it up and you will find that you're building your business one night at a time.
And now, broadcasting late at night from a little studio in the big state of Texas, your host, Mark Mason.
Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Mark Mason, and I am your host from Dallas, Texas, talking to you about part-time internet marketing and all the things you need to do to build and grow your business. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day today. As you can tell, I've got my deep, sexy, Barry White voice this morning because the weather's changing here in Texas, and usually for me, that comes with some kind of allergy or, some kind of thing that I have to deal with. And I feel fantastic, but I sound sexy. I don't know what the deal is with it, but a little allergy medicine and I'll be absolutely fantastic and just fine. But right now I'm sounding a little froggy, so I hope you'll forgive me that today. Well, as I promised a few episodes ago, I wanted to talk to you this week about what it takes to get yourself back on track when you get off track. One of the things, especially when you're trying to build a business on the side, is that you're usually dealing with lots of conflicting priorities. And this can happen even if you're not building a business on the side. You're just trying to do a lot of different things. You've got, as we say down here in Texas, 7 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. Sometimes we're a little bit more explicit about what the stuff is, but you get the idea. You got more to do than you can really do. You get your priorities out of whack. And for me, this is a real thing that has happened to me over and over again in my business. I've been building a business online since 2007, and I've made a tremendous amount of progress. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that I've been able to accomplish since 2007, but compared to the goals that I've set, for those of you that have listened to the podcast, I have gotten off track over and over and over again and had to reset the course. And I think, a lot of people, you look at a lot of people who are incredibly successful in whatever thing you want to look at, whether it's online business or in the real world, in the brick and mortar world, as it were. And you look at them and you think, wow, that person has accomplished so much. They're doing so great. They must be really special. I will submit to you that there are no overnight successes. There are no perfect people. They've all had their trials and tribulations and struggles. And one thing that everybody struggles with is this thing where you lose focus, you get off track, things don't go exactly the way that you want them to. And for those of you that know, that have been listening to a couple of episodes, you know that this summer for me, everything went off track. I lost my father and my grandmother and was involved in not just the emotions of dealing with that, which were a lot bigger deal than I expected they would be. But also just picking up the pieces and helping mom move forward and dealing with paperwork and all the stuff. And when that happens, sometimes something has to give. And so all these plans that I had for the summer for late night internet marketing were suddenly off track. And the question is, well, what do you do about that? And it turns out what you do about it was covered incredibly well by Cliff, my buddy Cliff Ravenscraft, the podcast answer man, in a show where he talked about his experience with the science of achievement, which is a Tony Robbins concept. Recently, if you follow Cliff, he was at the Tony Robbins event in Dallas. This is one of the rare times where Cliff came to Dallas and I didn't get to see him. He was so focused on the Tony Robbins event and so fired up. Our paths were not able to cross, which is a really weird thing to happen. But he learned an enormous number of things, pages and pages of notes he has from Tony. And one of the things that he learned about was the science of achievement. And that is something that applies here in this particular case incredibly well. Years and years and years ago, when I was a young engineer here in Dallas, I had the opportunity to take a course that was offered by my employer called The Art of Power Goaling. And it was a course that was similar to this idea, and maybe it was also derived from Tony Robbins' work, where the science of achievement was described to me at that time. And it applies so well in this case that I wanted to share it with you. Let's hear what Cliff has to say as he outlines his takeaways from the science of achievement as explained by Tony Robbins.
So here are the 3 mandates or keys to effective leadership. Number 1, see things as they really are, but refuse to ever see them as worse than they are. Then number 2, you need to see it as better than it is. You have to have vision and visualize what does it look like, feel like to have achieved success in resolving that problem or overcoming that obstacle. And then number 3, once you have seen it for what it really is and you see it as better than what it is, you've got the vision. Number 3 is take action and make it that way. Those are the 3 key elements or keys to effective leadership.
Now, the episode where Cliff discusses the science of achievement can be found over at podcastanswerman.com/465. That's this 465th episode. Tell him you heard about him over here on Late Night Internet Marketing. That always makes him smile. So in a particular case where you're off track, like I was this summer, I think the first thing that Cliff describes is actually the most critical. When we get off track, it's a disappointment and we haven't done what we've said we were going to do. So in many cases, we may have let someone down, and it can be a really debilitating feeling. In my case, I had committed to release this niche site course, which I am still going to release over at latenightaffiliate.com. And it wasn't done. I mean, I was off track and I had committed to this. I'd made a big deal out of it. I didn't do it. Not only did I let myself down, but I let down people who really need that course and are looking forward to it and perhaps had planned their summers where they would have time to work on it. People had signed up and were waiting to hear from me about when this course would be available, and I didn't deliver. And so it was a very debilitating, kind of depressing thing where you just feel like, this is just so terrible. I've done this thing, and maybe you can get down on yourself in that case. Now, for me, I'm a pretty positive guy, but it's real easy to imagine situations where you could go, oh, I'm just a failure. I'm never going to get this right. I'm in this pattern over and over again. I say I'm going to do things and I don't get them done. Oh, woe is me. And this business is never going to work out because I have all these obstacles and things just aren't going my way. So the first idea in the the science of achievement is to recognize things for exactly what they are and not worse than they are. So the truth of the matter is, I didn't meet my commitments, and I can own that and say, look, I didn't do this. But really, that's pretty much the extent of it. And maybe there are some customers out there that are very disappointed that I didn't meet my commitments. But truth of the matter is, so many of them understood completely what was going on. And for a lot of them, they were just signed up for the course to help me complete the course. They weren't, it didn't ruin their lives. And I'm not saying you shouldn't meet your commitments, but the truth of the matter is, this isn't a world-ending crisis. This is a missed goal that it's unfortunate that it was missed. We don't want to do that, but that's pretty much the extent of it. So the first thing to do when you're off track is to really take inventory of what it is that this means for you. And being off track is something that, when put into context of the bigger picture, a lot of times is really perhaps not that big a deal. For example, if you compare where I am now compared to where I was in 2007, I've made an enormous amount of progress in this business. I started with no website, no followers, no podcast, no affiliate commissions, no products, no additional website properties, no knowledge about affiliate marketing. And I built up all these things. So in that context, well, I've actually made some progress. And in the context of time elapsed since 2007, which has been we're creeping up on 10 years now, almost 9 years, going on 10 years, a 3 or 4 month delay, that's a pretty small thing. And so I think the first thing to do in these cases is exactly what the science of achievement suggests, as Cliff described it, which is to just say, look, this is what it is, and it's not bigger than that. The world has not ended. There's still plenty of opportunity out there. People still want the course that I've committed to design. I can still do it. It's late, but that's all it is. It's just late. So that's the first thing. And I think you can always do that when you're off track. You can take stock and realize what it is. And I think the second thing for the science of achievement is equally as important, and it goes back to this course that I mentioned earlier, the visioneering, the art of power goaling. It turns out that if you're in a situation or at a place or under a condition or at a spot in your life and you want to be somewhere else, the important thing to do is to imagine that result. So for me, what that looks like is getting back to work and understanding that the end product is this product release that really helps people and that is successful in the marketplace and that causes people to be able to improve their lives and allows me to generate revenue and is something that I can be proud of, and so on and so on. I can envision what that looks like and what it takes to get there. And visualizing that thing, it turns out in this Tony Robbins part of the universe where neuro-linguistic programming is a thing, that allows your mind to start finding solutions to get the ship turned in the right direction. And Tony Robbins and people who are doing this kind of work will tell you that once you set your mind to doing a thing, it's like setting the GPS destination in your car. Your car will find the route. If you tell it you want to go from here to the football stadium and you don't quite know how to get there, that's not a problem for your GPS. It will puzzle out the route. Tony Robbins and others in this field will tell you that your mind is very similar, that if you imagine the destination in your mind, that over time, your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, when you're actually working on it, will work together to find solutions to problems that will allow you to get to where you need to be. They argue that this is what happens when you're brushing your teeth, and all of a sudden, up from your subconscious mind comes a solution to some problem that you've been thinking about for the last 2 weeks. You've figured out what it is that you want to do, and then while you've slept or while you weren't thinking about it, your subconscious mind is churning on those problems, and it will offer up solutions in the shower while you're brushing your teeth and so forth. And so this is not too different. Step one is to realize the problem for what it is. Step two is to visualize where it is that you want to go. And so for me, what that meant was realizing, okay, what I want to do is finish this course, and I want to do it by the end of the year. It's really that simple. There's not much more complicated than that. And you know, really what this amounts to, as Cliff describes it, and I love the words Cliff uses, and I'm sure they rely heavily on what Tony teaches. You refuse to see things as worse than they are. You know, see what's really there, but refuse to see them as worse than they are, and then have the courage to see them as better than they are right now. Visualize where you want to go is the way I'm expressing it, but the words Cliff uses are see them as better than they are. Where is it that you want to go? And then the third thing is obviously just make it happen. Go get it done. Do the work. Commit to doing what it is that you need to do, and let the past be in the past. Rock and roll. Get after it. Go get it done. So how do you get back on track when you've gotten off track? It's really simple. Don't despair. Just see things as they really are. And in my case, the way they really were was a 3 or 4 month delay in my world plan. I'm going to live for approximately 100 years. I'm 4 months behind what I wanted to be. Big deal. Visualize what it is that you want. I want to release a successful course that people love and really, really benefits people in their internet marketing journey. And then go get it done. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going and getting it done with the goal of releasing this thing by the end of the year. Easy peasy. I hope that helps you. And if you talk to Cliff, go give him a shout out on Twitter and tell him you heard about him on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast. That'll make him smile.
Whether you say niche or niche, it's time for an update on the Late Night Niche site.
Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the niche site. So we've been talking about the Late Night Niche site. And so in episode 98, I believe it was, we talked about exactly what you could do to brainstorm a list of niches. Then in a later episode, actually specifically in episode 103, 2 weeks ago, we talked about how to down select from those niches. And we talked about finding a niche that was commercially viable, where you were interested and where you had stuff to talk about and those sort of things. And if you're looking for a way to pick a niche out of this sea of potential niches that we talked about how to generate in episode 98, episode 103 tells you how to do that. Well, for me, one of the examples that we talked about was youth baseball. And so we're going to pick that one, and we're going to build a site right here on the podcast, and we'll talk about it week over week and talk about how that goes. Today, what I wanted to talk about was, well, why did I choose youth baseball as my example? And I will tell you the criteria that I set out in episode 103 are met very well. My personal level of interest, as I mentioned in the episode, in youth baseball right now is very high. I've got a 9-year-old kid who would love to play second base every day for the rest of his life, and I'm coaching a youth baseball team. So my interest is very high. The second criteria is there's a lot of stuff to talk about in youth baseball. You can talk about news and trends and what's going on in youth baseball. You can talk about how to run good youth baseball practices. You can talk about how to be a good youth baseball coach with regard to managing the team and parents and all that sort of stuff, best practices. You can talk about tools for youth baseball coaching, software tools, practice tools, and gear. You can talk about kids' gear and so on. There's all kinds of stuff. In addition, I can tell personal stories if I choose to about what's going on with my youth baseball team that might be interesting to an audience. And I'm sure there's a dozen other things, a dozen other large topics that I could talk about with regard to youth baseball. Just with regard to equipment, I can get down to a lot of specifics about gloves and baseball bats and training gear. Those are really three separate, very large topics. There are also a lot of online courses available for coaches on how to run baseball practice. And those last four topics, the gloves, the training gear, the bats, and the courses, those also have strong commercial opportunities because a lot of those items are quite expensive and they all have affiliate programs. So these commercial criteria that I set out in episode 103, are there ads in Google? Are there products on Amazon to sell? All of that is possible and is out there. And so that all is great. And then in addition to that, from a competition standpoint, I'm not, when I go and I look at the competition in Google and I just kind of Google around and look at the different websites that are out there for the kinds of phrases that I might imagine competing against, there's lots of strong competition out there. There are strong websites in this space, but I don't see a bunch of stuff out there that's completely dominating page one of Google to the point where I don't think I can rank. I know I can rank, and we'll talk about that as time goes on. So my intention now then for a niche website for us to talk about is to create a new niche website in the youth baseball space. And by the way, this is also, if you really want to get down into the nitty gritty details, easy for me to say, about how this is going to be done. This is the website that I'm also building for the late night affiliate course. Now, in that course, it's the example site that I use. Obviously, in the podcast, we don't have time to go through all the details, but youth baseball is the example that we're going to talk about. And in some future episode of the podcast, I'm going to release the actual URL for that website. So you'll be able to go look at it, and we'll talk about it over the months and probably years about how it does and so forth. And so that's the update on the late night niche site. If you've got questions about niche selection, about your niche, and so forth, leave a comment in the show notes over at latenightim.com/105. latenightim.com/105. That's the show notes for this episode. Or you can send me a message at podcast@latenightim.com.
Now it's your turn. What action are you going to take to build your business?
One night at a time.
Okay, that about wraps it up for me today. I am actually late night internet marketing here. So this is full transparency here. Late night internet marketing at 4 a.m. because I was busy on a conference call last night for my day job with Asia. It turns out that people in Asia, they sleep during the day. I don't know what's up with that. Something about the rotation of the earth and the sun. But anyway, sometimes when I want to talk to them, I have to be up late at night, and I was last night, so I didn't get to record this, and I'm committed to getting this podcast to you on a weekly basis. It's another one of those science of achievement things. Podcast not coming out regularly, that's not as big a deal as it feels like to me. It's just, it is what it is. I haven't done what I said I was going to do in the past. I'm back on track. I can visualize a world where my podcast comes out every week and people are counting on it. They wait by their iPods or their iPhones or their electronic devices for the thing to download, and then they listen to it, and it makes their life better every week. That's my visualization. and it comes out no matter what, and they count on it and they're happy. And then I know how to do that. It's be committed and do it. So I'm up at 4:00 in the morning recording, and now I am going to go take a shower, which I do almost every day, and go to Donuts for Dads with my 9-year-old over at the elementary school. I will not eat a donut. My lifestyle is a lifestyle that does not involve high carbohydrate, super high glycemic index foods. I am more of a broccoli and grilled meat kind of guy these days. So unless they have broccoli and grilled meat donuts, which sound absolutely disgusting, I'll be drinking coffee, but I'll be sitting with my youngster who is very, very excited about Donuts with Dads this morning. This is really good to talk to you guys. I will see you next week. When I look at the schedule for next week, it looks like we will be talking about my layperson's view, carefully researched, layperson's view about content and intellectual property law. You know, back in episode 104, we did the 10 business commandments, and we used some intellectual property from Lin-Manuel Miranda in that episode. And I talked to you about, I mentioned this thing about fair use and copyright and fair use as a defense and copyright infringement and so forth. We're going to talk about all that and how it applies to you and your websites, particularly in affiliate marketing, where you might be tempted to steal images from Amazon and other places. When can you do that? When is it okay? I'm going to give you my non-binding legal opinion, even though I'm not a lawyer. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
You can do it right when it's late at night.
You've been listening to the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
Be sure to visit latenightpodcast.com today to leave feedback for Mark. Download special bonus content, access the show notes, and more. See you there.
Until then, go and make some great progress on your internet business. One night at a time.
One night at a time.
Yeah, man, it's way early in the morning, and I've got my Barry White voice. I always want to like sing Elvis or something whenever I've got this voice. It's like, I'll be home for Christmas. You know, that kind of Elvis thing going on there. Yeah. Hey, baby, want to come with me and listen to some late night internet marketing? Let's do some internet marketing late at night, baby. I'm Barry White. I bet there's a whole section of my audience who doesn't even know who Barry White is. You got to Google Barry White. Maybe I'll ease in a little Barry White tune for you right here so you can understand the greatness.
I've heard people say that
of Barry White.
too much of anything is not good for you, baby.
Barry White, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know about that.
Can't get enough of your love, baby. Yeah. Hey, I'm Barry White. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, sometime about maybe 10 years ago, Barry left us, but his music lives on. Peace out, ladies.
Late night internet marketing.
Hey, it's Mark again. I wanted to tell you one more time about this absolutely free resource that I have for helping people who are trying to get the big picture for internet marketing, actually get started and understand what all their choices are. If that's not you, there's no more content. You can skip to the end. But if you're someone who came to this podcast because you're searching for how to get started online and you just can't cut through all the noise, I get it. That was me in 2007 when I was trying to get started. There were so many people throwing offers at me that I really couldn't even understand what all the different business models were. I couldn't understand how money moved around on the internet. And I couldn't really get a grip on what direction I wanted to go in so I could figure out how to move forward. I've created a free video resource for you just for that purpose at latenightim.com/explain. In several short videos, I just explained to you what internet marketing is all about and what online business is all about and the different options that you have for starting an online business. There's nothing to buy there. You just sign up for access and you get the videos just like that. So if that's interesting to you, or if you know someone who's in a same situation, send them that link, latenightim.com/explain, and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear what people are thinking that are in the exact same position that I was in more than a decade ago in 2007. In some ways, it seems like yesterday. And in some ways, it seems like an entire lifetime ago. Again, that's latenightim.com/explain.
Late night internet marketing.